Hi, Justin here again. This is part 2 now of the speed development. What we're going to look at now is hammer-ons and flick-offs. Now some of you might be familiar with this already, in which case you just have to apply it to the scale, but I'm going to pretend like you don't know even what hammer-ons and flick-offs are. So the idea of a hammer-on is to play one note and then hammer a finger down very hard further up the string so it creates a second note without having to pick it. So if I play this first note G using that 3-note string scale, without using this hand, I can hammer a note down, and you can hear that just by hammering the finger down really hard I can get that second note. So that's a hammer-on, and it's really important that you hammer it on. Yeah, that's the whole point of it. If you just kind of press it on, you don't get a very clear note. The other thing that we're going to look at today is called a flick-off. Now sometimes it's called a pull-off in magazines. I think it's more of a flicking action. So a flick-off is exactly the reverse of a hammer-on. So if we started with those 3 fingers down and we play this note with our little finger and then flick off your little finger, it leaves the note that was under your second finger, and then flick off your second finger and it leaves the note that was under your first finger. So that's the 2 techniques that we're going to be covering. What we're going to do is be playing the scale up and down using these techniques. We're going to focus just on hammer-ons first and then just on pull-offs, and then the next lesson we'll start combining them together. So we'll go to a close-up now and I'll take you through doing the scale with this. Okay, so here we are for the G major scale. To start off with, we're going to be looking at hammer-ons. So make sure your fingers are kind of roughly in the right position already. You're going to pick the first note, and then hammer the next note down with your second finger, and then the next note down with your little finger. Now we're just going to keep playing up the scale now just to get the techniques right. So pick, hammer, hammer, pick, hammer, hammer, pick, hammer, hammer, pick, hammer, hammer, and pick. Hopefully you can see that the action of hammering is really quite you really hammer it down really hard as you can. The idea is to try and get the second 2 notes, because you pick the first note, to get the second 2 notes to be around the same volume as the first note. You should be able to achieve that. Do that sometimes by picking a little less hard, sometimes by hammering harder. That's the 2 options you've got to even it up. So now what I'd recommend that you practice now is doing each string 4 times before you move on, and doing hammer-ons as well on the way back down. So you do this. Once you've got that faster, maybe move it to 2. If you want to just have a muck around then with just using 1 time on each string, you can get going. That kind of exercise going on. Okay, now we're going to look at flick-offs. So flick-offs, we'd have little finger, all 3 fingers roughly in position first. We'd pick, flick, flick. Next string, pick, flick, flick. Next string, pick, flick, flick. Can you see it's a flicking motion? Now try and do the 4 on each one, the same as we did for the hammer-ons. twos again. And then if you want to do just ones again, etc. But just muck around with them. Hey, I hope that's all going cool. Remember that one of the keys to learning to play fast is by playing slowly when you start off. So please, please, please make sure when you're doing those exercises with the hammer-ons and flick-offs that you're doing them really, really slowly. Because there's no, the coolest thing about the really fastest guys, the full-on shred metal guitar players, is if you slow down their stuff using a half speed or a quarter speed machine, every note is absolutely perfectly clear. Do not try and just learn them and get your fingers whittling around really fast without the notes being clear, because it will just sound shit. It's really, really important. Make sure you keep every note 100% clear. If it's not clear, you're doing it too fast, slow down. The speed will happen by itself. Well, not exactly by itself, probably with a bit of help from metronome, but generally the speed will come if you get things really, really clear. So have fun with that, and I'll see you in a little while for cycling, and I don't mean on a bike.